so getting on really well with this one, although small problem. Okay, so actually what we got down here, we've got the front end. Now this is dry to a point. Now usual thing is it's got a lot of heavy gloss coats on this. If I was to be holding it like this for too long, I'm actually going to put a fingerprint in it. I'm still waiting for my white gloves to turn up. They're not here yet, so we've elected to crack on there. As you can see underneath here, we've started to put the suspension system together, and when we look at it just down here, so it's all the way down the front, but we didn't do this. So actually what we've got here is this lower plate, okay, which is this guy down here. That's down there, no problem at all. Then we've got these two uprights coming through, which is no problem at all, okay? And then you've got the bar is going to sit on the top like these two here. So you've got C5 and C6 are going to go on there, but we've already put D21 in before we've put actually the crossbar, which is actually the steering rack, into the system. So, small technical hitch. So what we've had to do is cut it in half and put it in as separates. Now to do that, we've already done the wheels and the ducting area and everything else like that. So actually what we've got is a situation, if I just drag that camera out just a little bit too close. Okay, you're going to have to put this one in. Now this is a little bit on the angle, so you have to work out which way it is. The duct comes through. Now the little pipe it's got on the top, it goes onto the top side of it. And then this guy is actually going to come to the front, making sure it goes up. And these are actually a push click bit, so actually really nice. Now just be careful how you hold on to this thing, because you don't want to really, as I say, grab it around here if you're like me and done it this way. So what you've got to do, you've got those little hooks there, they're going to go into the slots on here, and this bar has got to go through the hole at the very front, so that sits in there. And then somehow you've got to try and get this all to push in and line up. Okay, so a couple of clicks later, click and click, we should be in there just like that. Okay, now we've got to have a little bit of silver work up the front here, but hopefully, as you can see, that is our front part put on. Okay, and yes, okay, the steering theoretically should work. From our point of view it doesn't, because we didn't put the bar in, but that's not too much of a problem. I haven't also glued all of these parts in where they join the frame right the way in, purely because we've got the lacquer on. We don't want to affect any of the lacquer and everything else like that, but that is sitting on there very nicely, just like that. So that's pretty straightforward how that one goes. Okay, so with that one on, which obviously gets us down to here. Now you could put obviously the decals on and the various bits and pieces painted around the front. We've done the rears, we haven't bothered decals because, to be honest, mine's going to have the wheels on. Same with these guys down here. If you're going to have the actual fuel parts, sorry, the brake cylinders put in, then obviously you're going to need to get those attached and painted before you put in. Or if you're going to have the nose on, again, it's personal choice. But what we're actually doing now is working our way back up through the system. So there's a couple of little bits of paintwork we've got to touch in, but we can actually do that once it is all in there together. So these are all these parts moved up. And so the next area, what we can actually do is these guys down here. Okay, so again, we've actually got it all built and everything else. It's just actually putting it in. And here is that nose system, looking very nice, very glossy and all the rest of it. So all the gluing work I'm doing here, we're actually using this stuff. Put the lid on before you tip it back. Okay, now this is the Tamiya cement. The idea with this one is that it's not going to melt or react with any of the lacquer coat that's down there. The thing is, the lacquer, once it dries, goes extremely hard. It's very difficult for your normal glues to sort of penetrate down there. So something like your extra thin may get in there, but it might not get right the way into it, okay? This stuff is more like a resin. It's a lot more gentle. If you remember when we did the build for the Ducati motorbike, we used this stuff purely because it's clean. It doesn't make any mess or anything else. Now this is straightforward pushing this in. Okay, so that is just going to sit in there and it comes out. I've got a little bit of silver on the bottom, that's from where my clamp was. But what you want to do is just make sure that this is all the right way. And again, I've put a little fingerprint in the top, which you'll see me how to get rid of that in a moment. But basically that sits on there just like that. To get rid of your fingerprints, if you do put them into a gloss work, take a smooth cloth and just polish it. And what you actually do is rub it out. You will actually blend it in to the surface. Okay, and then when it self-levels, it will all go away on its own. So if we just give this a bit of a rub, There we go, go in there like that. But there's our nose looking in. So what we want to do is let that dry. So if you want to, you take a little bit of this resin and we're just going to pop it around the outside. The great thing about this resin as well, it will dry totally clear and gloss-like. So what that means from our point of view is nice smooth surface. So if you do find you've got any little rough areas, you can overcoat it with this stuff, just a small brush, something like that, and it will actually give you a very nice look to it, just like that. Now there's a couple of little bit of photo etches got to go on the nose and everything else, but what we're going to do is we're just going to prop it slightly on one side, just as that all dries off, just like that, okay? So that can be drying and everything else like that. The other thing as well, you might notice we've used a little bit of this. We used the old AK metallizers, all right, and we've done the wheel hubs and the tires, okay, straightforward. The trouble you have with a tire is this. Here we have a nice before and after shot of actually what I've been doing. So these guys down here, you can see this one is scuffed, it's worn in and all the rest of it. Okay, this one has got a center seam, some mold marks, things like that in there. To be honest, using quite a coarse sanding sponge, we just move this guy out of the way. All we do is come in and tear into it. Now you want the rubber to warm up slightly so it sands better, because at the moment you can see the little dusty parts coming down here. You need to sort of get in there to get them out. Also, I'm slightly pinching the walls to make it bulge up a little bit more. So more of the effort goes into getting rid of the center seam rather than anything else. But what we want to do is obviously wear the tire. So that's why we're going right the way across the entire thing. All right, and you just keep going at it. And once you started, actually it's not too bad at all, okay? You're just rolling it around, pinching it together, making sure you get right to the edges of the walls, okay, so you don't get any funny spots. And then we're just coming around with the direction of the tire just to put into nice texture into this one. Then we just come along to the slightly finer side and we just slightly polish into it. Okay, and then to be honest, what I do is on the old trousers just to polish it in. So we've got no center seam, obviously lots of center seam, and then eventually you'll end up with this. Now the tires themselves, they go on a certain way, okay, so just you might have to take them off, take them on. Also, we've still got to do the work on them. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can either decal it or spray it. We're going to spray it and we'll show you that in a moment, okay? But from these point of view, you've got these guys down here. These are the rear ones, so it's the thicker tire, and they're a simple push fit into it. But what you want it to do is actually pop right the way out, okay? If they don't pop and seat correctly, you're going to end up with a seam line running right the way around the outside, so it looks like the tire isn't on the rim correctly and all the rest of it. So make sure you push it too far and then pull it back, just so the wall of the tire actually fits in there. And there we go, there's our tires done, all ready to be fitted on as we make our way through the actual build of the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish off that tyre. There's a couple of little pieces we need to just pop on here. So we've got a couple of bits of photo etch got to go down on the nose, couple on the front. I can take care of those, okay? And then what we can actually do is start bringing this together. So we've already started, we've already put the plate, this is the bracket that goes up the middle, so we can now get the front of the car situated and actually fitted on down here. All right, he says, knocking that bit. All right, but technically that's going to go in up here. So you've actually just got to fit it in all the intakes, and you've got a little slice down there, and the fit is absolutely perfect. It literally just clips in and drops down there. One thing to remember, you've actually got right down there in the middle, you've got the hole. If you do want to put the screw to actually do it to the bottom plate, make sure you install that, because that will show you here somewhere. There we go, there's the nut fitting in there. That's that point we were talking about, and those just fit in. It is really as easy as that. Very, very straightforward. All right, so we can get those on, then we can get the little barge boards put in. They're painted up on here, ready to go in. To be honest, there's a decal to go on those, but I needed to put it in so we make sure it's square, so we've got to fit that on. And there is a couple more little decals to go around, things like on the wing mirrors and that, but we're going to do those all as an afterthought as we've all got it fitted in. Okay, the last thing we can do, this guy up here, as you can see, you've got a photo etch part's going to go in, but also this guy, which is the rear part, is actually, make sure we've got clean hands here, going to fit into here. So it slides underneath, okay, and it's going to push in. Okay, don't forget you've got the lacquer in there, so it's going to make everything just a little bit thicker. Okay, but it's going to push in just like that. Okay, so we've got that one in. Again, try not to put fingerprints on it by squeezing it and holding it so hard. Okay, so that one is in, and then that's going to finish and drop in the back and everything else. But again, small little piece of photo etch has got to go in there, and that's these guys. We can find them around here somewhere on another sheet, which I will find in a second. That's it. I think they're over here in our little box of bits. There we go. So down here we've got the wing mirrors in the metal, and these are our photo etch bits. So these are the two side bits down the side of the nose. This is for that rear wing that go down there, and these are the plates, the tiny little ones, which are going to go on the front of that nose when that's all dried in there. So a few little bits and pieces. I'll get on with those, get those fitted, get that tyre finished off and everything else. Then next up we'll show you about painting the tyres, getting those on, and then we can actually put it all together for the final assembly. Okay, so as you can see, we're actually making very nice headway down here. We've sort of got it together. We haven't properly got this together, but we're halfway there. The reason putting it together now, quite frankly, we've got to get all the little bits and pieces in there. We need to make sure they line up and everything else. So having a quick look. Here we are, looking very nice. Now, I haven't actually got the nose fitted in there properly yet. It's all still a little bit of a loose fit, but generally it's in there. And we've got a real problem here because this rear part can't get it to fit in. It's playing up, it's really complicated, but technically it joins up to the back here. It's all a little bit squeezy and iffy. It does go if you push it, but we don't want to force it. And being Tamiya, you don't expect to be able to force it anyway. So what have we gone and done and put on? Okay, the side areas just down here, we've got like the barge boards, I think they call them, and these end little scoop air fairing type things on here. As you can see them, they are on and in. We put them down and now we've decaled them, to be honest, we're decaling as we speak. The wing mirrors have gone in, but we haven't got the reflective bit in yet, just in case we're going to re-gloss and do touch-up things, okay? But we've had to decal those, so we've got those on as well, okay? Up here on the top, you can see is obviously we've got the cameras, so we've got the pods on the side and on the top and everything else like that. Tiny bit of glue, and to be honest, for all the glue work everywhere on this, I'm using this, which is Tamiya's type of resin cement. It's got a resin in there, dries extremely clear, extremely glossy, and away you go. Okay, generally it is all fitting very well. It's just a little bit, you know, sort of putting it together. Now this front suspension unit and everything, I haven't actually glued any of it, purely because we've got the decals running around it and everything else. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to, because it's all a little bit wobbly. It's all sitting there and holding, but it's got a little bit of movement in there. The tolerances are a little bit all over the place, and it's beginning to push itself around. So generally, the last bit we got up here, we're doing the Weber car. So actually his one has the Dayglow yellow, not the Dayglow orange surface ones for these guys all up here. Okay, so we've actually got these parts here. So pretty straightforward. Just grab a bit more. It's been sitting. We've got this one up here, which is going to do the entire top section. I do believe the stripe goes to the front. Up here. I've got this around the right way. Hook this off, and then this guy is going to go right the way over the entire front. And it's actually going to slightly, if I remember rightly, pull down on the front end just a tiny bit. Just I'm looking at it, checking the instructions. Yeah, it does seem to be like that. So what we're going to do is just going to grab hold of this and just make sure it's pulled right to the very front. Because what will happen is when we put some thinners on this in a minute, hopefully it will all pull it downwards how it should be. So that's just on there. Okay, so we're just going to give it a little tap, just to get that all home. Okay, then just down here, slightly out of shot of the top cam, we've got a tiny bit of thinners. So this is just X20A acrylic thinners. Okay, I'm brushing all over this top part so it all settles down. Now what this will do over your traditional setting solutions, it'll weld it down. Okay, it's great for that one touch, so you don't want to be brushing this around, because technically if it was acrylic you'd be taking it off. This is lacquered, it's pretty much down there, and it's enamels, so it shouldn't affect anything it goes down. In fact, it's even beading up, it's that good. So we're just gonna dab away, just sucking up all the excess thinners all over this, just to make sure it's all good. Then what we got is these two end ones, so we've got one that's a lot larger than the other. Okay, so we're just going to put it down here. Now these only go one way round because they're literally like aircraft wings. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here a little bit, and we're going to sit this on the side. And again, the thinners will just help this conform and bend around the entire area. Okay, we'll show you on the close-up a little bit more detail in a second. So a little bit of moisture going down there, picking up this tiny little decal. Okay, and then just easing it in. Okay, and literally you've only got to touch it on there if you've got thinners below it, because it will suck it onto the surface. But what we're going to do is just going to maneuver it, making sure it's all round. There should be a little black gaps all the way around it, so don't think this is on and then it's in. Okay, so that's pretty much on there. Just checking our references, making sure we're all good. Then again, we're just going to come up, taking all the water out of the brush, so we just pick up a little bit of thinners. Okay. And this front. Just get it down. Then once it starts to melt, you can actually just tap it with your finger just to get it to conform and bend round. Let's just nudge that aside just a little bit. So we just need to reseat him. Okay, so, and there we go. That's those on there like that. Okay, pretty straightforward. No problem at all. So that is really getting there. Obviously we've got aerials, got various little bits and pieces to go on yet, so we're not quite finished it totally. One of the big areas, and you've got your decision to do, is this. Now what we've got here is your decals for the tyres. I don't think that's going to work in a million years, because decaling onto rubber is notoriously difficult. Tamiya though, I've come up with this. Okay, so this is a template for doing your tyres. Now you might notice, but you've probably seen it already, that's them on there like that, and they look, I think, really, really good. Okay, so I was very happy. So easiest way is to do this. So what we've done, Tamiya tape right the way around it, just in the middle. Okay, you've got these little tabs that hang off the bottom here, and if I just grab a bit of this, hopefully my paint hasn't dried out, because to be honest I did this about an hour ago. Okay, so you just seat this on. Now this isn't a perfect fit because the rear tyre is slightly different, so what you want to do, like I've done here, is hold the sides. Okay, then you rest it so you know it's in the middle. I'm just hoping we've got enough paint still. I think we have. Okay, so once that's down, making sure it's down and you're nice and central. Okay, and then you can literally, now this is neat paint onto this, so, and then lift straight off. There we have our tyre done. Now the thing is, as I said, it's neat paint, so you shouldn't get any smearing or anything underneath, but just make sure you're careful how you're placing it down and lifting it off to make sure it's nice and square. And don't flood it too hard. Okay, just like that. And then hopefully, he says, trying to do this very carefully, because normally you would wait till this is totally dry, but doing my usual too quick self. Okay, you can just take your time and say, normally give this an hour, don't do this, because if you stick your finger in it, not only have you got to repaint it, you've got to clean your tyre as well. Now I've got a little line running through there, but that's just the tape. And there we go, that's those done, just like that. If we just move this out of the way, you can see, I think they've turned out really, really well. And then again, don't try this at home because it's too soon, but literally these come along and then fit onto your car, and they'll push on, because what you're doing is you're pushing into those poly caps, giving you your wheels done just like that. So really we are looking the part now. We haven't got to do too much left to this. We've got aerials, antennas and things like that to go on there. We need the decals to settle down. I'm really, really concerned about this area up here, which, as I say, we had a real nightmare getting that in. I'm going to try and lacquer it, maybe even by hand, brushing on lacquer by hand to try and smooth it out. A lot of the wrinkles and that is caused just by the light catching it and things like that. So I think I'm going to try and hand lacquer it down in there to make those go in and everything else like that. But generally we are pretty close to the finishing line. So I'm going to get the aerials all sorted out, get them cut to length. Really straightforward, the pitot tubes, the things like that, get it all together, let it have a go, try and figure out what's going on with this tail and everything else, and we'll be getting ready for the final reveal. Okay, really pushing on with this. So wheels are installed all in. It's the next day they're dry, it's handleable. So we've got a few problems really of our own making we need to fix. Now the first one, you can probably see it down here. See, it's a little bit lumpy and bumpy, but hopefully you can see on the other camera. We're trying to blend in down here. So what I've actually done is very slightly sanded off the high spots, not all the way down to bare plastic, admittedly, just a little bit. Then we came in with a touch-up bottle and we hand painted it on. Then we've come along with a lacquer, wherever it is, I had it here earlier, and we've hand painted that on as well. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not from a long way, but it's very difficult to get in here and redo this area purely because it's so near the decals and everything else. Yes, I think with more time, give me a few days on it, I could probably sand it all back, take it out and redo it and everything else like that. But unfortunately, time is a luxury we don't have on our side as we speak, okay? Now, a couple other bits and pieces we've been taking care of. Down here at the front, you might notice that we've actually got the pitot tube, I think it is, that type of thing on these. That one's fitted in there, and we've done the little silver work on the front. To be honest, hand painted. We use one of these tiny little eyebrow ones. AK stuff is hand paintable. Don't get me wrong, it's not as thick as luxurious as other things, but you can hand paint this stuff on. 2 coats gives you a very nice finish just like that. Looking down, you might see some shiny, there we go, just catching it, wing mirrors. We've installed the wing mirrors, we've put those on, we're all happy with that. So generally, we're pretty much almost there. A couple of lumps and bumps and aerials to go on there. The major stumbling block we've got is this rear part going on. Now, it looks pretty good like this until we come to put this on. Now, as we know, it wouldn't fit. I found my problems, and actually funny enough, I was filming the Q&A yesterday about this, and somebody was talking about outtakes. This is a classic example of why I don't do outtakes, because this was my own fault. Down in here, hopefully you can see it, we had the system with the pin coming out, but also if you look slightly in there, you might see a little hole. That hole shouldn't be there. It should be pushed, this part, right up into it. So down here where we've cut it slightly off the back, you might be able to see just down here, we just bring that side cam in just a little bit tighter. You might see we've got this little area here. We've trimmed that down because this technically should be up here, okay? There should be no gap. I tried to remove the pin, still wouldn't sit correctly because it's actually pushing down the floor because it's too high, okay? So what we've had to do is remove this area at the back here. So we've cut the entire of that section out, okay? So this now can fit in, all right? And then it goes in. And to be honest, it fits on here an absolute dream, without the need of anything apart from, now it hasn't got the pin, it just falls off the back. All right, so just make sure that part is pushed right the way up and you won't have the problem I've got. So what I've done, you might see here, we've got a little bit here, to be honest, it's a bit of photo etch we've used in the kit, and we've done it because we've got a small slice in between the two. So now what can happen is this has got enough room to be able to fit in here. Now let's get rid of that because it's stuck to the back, okay? And then as you can see, we've got this bit of photo etch is going to fit in here, and the photo etch is going to lock it all into position and hold it in, because I haven't got the pin now to hold it, because the pin is what drove it down and secured it and all the rest of it. But there it is, it's in there now, it's a fine, it's a nice, it's a good line up and everything else. It's not as secure, it's a little bit wobbly, shall we say, and everything else like that. I would like to probably glue it down. The trouble is, if I glue that down solid, you're not going to be able to remove the center compartment and reveal the engine. But what you can do if you wanted to, these two parts at the rear here will glue down to the back deck. You could actually glue them in and lock the entire thing down, and that would really be the end of it. So from a vehicle point of view, that's it, we're done. We've taken care of all the lumps and bumps, we put all the bits and pieces on, all the small parts and everything else. One of the last things to do, which is a little bit of a problem area, is down, as you can see here, we've got the yellow. This is the actual locking ring system, or the giant nut which holds the wheel onto the vehicle. The closest stuff I've got to that is actually yellow-green. I'm thinking with a gloss coat over this, it might work quite well. We're going to add a tiny bit of yellow to it as well. So what we've got is, we've done the old lollipop stick and we've stuck on these locking wheel nuts on there just like that. We'll grab a little bit of cloth. Okay, we're just going to lighten it a shade by just putting a tiny bit of yellow into it. So what I've got here is the airbrush, and it's already got a tiny bit in there. So what we're going to do is just going to grab another lump of yellow. So we're just going to put a couple of drops of yellow into this just to make it slightly stronger, because it will spray lighter anyway, but it's going to be the closest thing I've got to Dayglow green here. If you wanted Dayglow any other colour, got it all here. This one I haven't, all right? So check our flow. There it is, and then all we're going to do is spray these guys. Just coming in from all your different angles, so it's completely covered. Okay, so they're pretty good. I think shooting them with a little bit of gloss over the top would just give them a slightly nicer look and everything else like that, okay? So last up really for this particular one is we've got a couple of little aerials, just got to go on the front and everything else like that, and we're almost ready for the final review. Okay, and there we go, all completely finished. Absolutely fantastic. First time we've done a Formula 1 car, especially here on Flooring Models. Would it be my last? No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. As again, a bit like when we did the bike, a lot of learning curve on this one. It's a different way of modelling. When you're doing things like aircraft and armour, you're sort of set in your way. It doesn't really matter how you do things because, you know, you can come through the painting stage and things like that. When you're working with a high gloss, you know, very mirror finish, you have to worry about certainly how you're going to put it together and do various things. Lots of suspension work going in, for instance, into painted areas. So obviously you're not going to want to be sort of painting them afterwards. Decaling as well. Totally different on this one because decaling is part of the paint scheme. Again, you have to then think about, well, let's get the bigger parts all painted, get them, you know, decaled, get it together, put it in. I learned a lot, especially up here on this cockpit, which I think if you were just looking around here, you wouldn't actually notice. Now, it's blended in well, something we'll speak about in a moment about lacquering, but generally that's my own fault. Again, with the back part, it was my own fault. I had two big faults with this kit. You know, perhaps if I'd read the instructions better, spent a bit more time with it, things like that, then, you know, obviously it's one of those things you get very complacent and you sort of, you know, build it how you think it is. Knowing the kit now, then I know full well, obviously this rear part, that pin needs to be put in correctly and seated correctly so it all fits in the back end, and certainly making sure that the actual cockpit, the seat is installed nice and early, you know, mask it up afterwards. But again, I was trying to take a bit of a shortcut, wouldn't have to mask it as heavily and all the rest of it, but certainly doesn't fit in after it's all gone together. So we caused a little bit of damage around the top, and I have to say though, it's going down even to this day. To be honest, this is a couple of days later after I finished that final part. I like it to sit, it all goes down. When we do the lacquering, because we don't use a hardener into it in a high ratio, the lacquer takes a long time to go off. About a week, okay? But what that enables you to do is any little mistakes you've got, it then continues to self-level and go down. For instance, we had nasty fingerprints on this side area where we were trying to put that in. They've gone on their own. This one at the front we spoke about, gave it a bit of polish, has gone. These ones at the top have gone. To be honest, I had another one that I noticed afterwards down here on the back. That's gone. What happens is, it feels dry, you can work with it and all the rest of it, but what happens, it continues to dry and set and shrink back and lock in. As it's doing all these things over time, everything sort of just levels itself out and goes through. And to be honest, on the bike when we worked on the Ducati with that gorgeous red finish, we had a couple of imperfections. One on top of the fuel tank really annoyed the hell out of me. I can't even see it now. It is gone, and I know exactly where it is, and I go looking for it, and it has gone. And that's been a couple of weeks ago now, so it's still drying off and going back. Downside to it is putting these fingerprints in the first place, okay? So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. You could obviously use the hardener, then you know 24 hours later it's going to be rock hard and you can go ahead and work on it. But on the other hand though, if you make a mistake in that, or your paint's not absolutely perfect, because it's dried off and gone in, you're going to lock in that position. At least this way it gives you the get out clause of continue to letting it set. Now I'm not saying don't use any setters in there or the hardener into the 2-pack paint, because that's what it's designed to. It needs an activator to make it go off. Otherwise, technically, although it might be touch dry, it's not going to be handleable. You certainly wouldn't drive around in a car without it being on, because otherwise it's just going to pick up and everything's going to go horrible. But from a modelling point of view, you can get away with it. And also from a modelling point of view and a scale point of view, we've got this thing where it's a very fine, thin layer. It's not like a car layer where it's thick, you know, a millimetre of paint on this by the time it's had all the packs on there. This one is just very, very thin and goes in. The other thing that worried me about this particular one, we spoke about it, was the toffee apple effect, as we call it, where the gloss is so thick, it just doesn't look natural, okay? And it's something that worried me a lot on the bike, and I managed to get it on the bike because it's a bigger scale. I don't think it showed. On here, I was really worried about it because it just didn't look right to me. But if I'm honest with you, I just watched the Russian Grand Prix yesterday, and it seems about right. You know, the amount of mirror, they are very shiny, they are lovely, and obviously if you didn't want to do it this way, you could do it post race and cover it in, you know, marbles and all the bits and pieces in the back end, and just general grime and fly splats and everything else. So you don't have to go totally mirror, but it is finding a balance, because all too often you'll see people and they'll heavily lacquer an object and it just doesn't look right. It looks like a toffee apple. It's just so glossy, too shiny, too deep, and it has no scale effect. I think I've just about scraped through on this one, if we're honest. I'm quite happy with the way that this one's gone. It's gone in there. It has a nice general luster to it. We have a mirror-like finish running down the sides and on the nose and all things like that. So I'm really happy with the way it is. But I think a lot of that is to do with the decals breaking it up a lot more. If it was just a blue car, then it would look a little bit perhaps too glossy, but I think we've just about caught it on this one. Hasn't been an easy kit, certainly complex the way the decals go on with the paint scheme and putting it all together, but I think it's one of those ones, it's Tamiya quality, so the build is all there, no problem at all the faults are my own all the way through, but generally it was another steep learning curve about doing gloss work, perfect finishes and everything else like that. As I say, something I'm not used to, and if you've never done them before, it is a total different way of actually working at it. I've enjoyed it, I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, join me again next time.